going to go from the West Coast, Breach, to what was your previous beat? Entertainment and pop culture. We're going to Kansas City by way of MetLife Stadium. And man, remember that quaint time where we thought that Jackson Mahomes was a distraction? Turns out that Jackson Mahomes, Instagram, TikTok star, isn't even a blip on the Taylor Swift radar. Part of me wonders, and I can't believe I have to talk about this, but this is something that producer Harry is dying to talk about because he's a huge Taylor Swift fan. But it actually is a fair point. You saw the game on Sunday night. You saw the Chiefs jump out to 70-0 lead. You saw Zach Wilson tied at 20-20. Then Zach Wilson ended up with the fumble, and the Chiefs sort of drugged their way to victory. But, there were probably 25 shots in the suite of Taylor Swift with all her entourage, from Ryan Reynolds to Eric Stonestreet was there. We saw the guy from Queer Eye. I think Kyan is his name. We saw everyone Hugh Jackman was there.
Paul Rudd.
Sophie Rudd was
Turner,
there.
Fresh off her divorce from Joe Jonas.
We talked about that. Sophie Turner from Game of Thrones. So everyone and their brother and sister were there. And I'll tell a quick story. So my first Super Bowl was 2011, the one in Indianapolis, and Madonna was the halftime show. So I went to hear a press conference because, like Breach, that's how I roll. And I remember seeing her there and then thinking about Tom Brady. And Tom Brady isn't even in the same universe of fandom and popularity as Madonna. And this feels that way. Travis Kelce, and it's funny you mentioned Sophie Turner, who was on Game of Thrones, and the reasons. Which Jonas did she just get divorced from, Breach? Joe. So one of the things she said is that she didn't want to be known as Joe Jonas's wife. And part of me wonders, and Breach, I'll put it to you because you are a pop culture correspondent. Is there a situation where Travis Kelce does not want to be known as Taylor Swift's friend, number one? And number two, is this in any way, shape, or form a distraction?
Number one, there is no way on this earth that Travis Kelce is thinking like that, because if that was the case, you wouldn't even go on a date with Taylor Swift, because that everyone outside the football bubble is going to look at you as Taylor Swift's guy, not the other. Taylor Swift is not Travis Kelce's girlfriend. Travis Kelce is Taylor Swift's boyfriend. That is how 99% of the world will know Travis Kelce. That is how people outside the United States will know Travis Kelce. That is how anyone who is not an NFL fan will know Travis Kelce. So yeah, you're definitely Taylor Swift's boyfriend. And you know what? I don't think it was a distraction. Granted, it's only been one real game. You can count last week, but it was kind of surprised at the last minute, so we won't throw that. It seemed like the only person who was distracted was Patrick Mahomes. Yeah. And I feel like that's probably because his wife has been keeping up all week talking about how she's best friends with Taylor Swift now. Because those two are apparently BFFs. I mean, they're drinking in the MetLife Stadium box together.
There's some pretty funny shots of Brittany Mahomes with sour faces, as Taylor Swift's celebrating something. It's what is this it's like Brittany's furious that Patrick's playing poorly, or so I don't know. It's she's got the pouty faces, and Taylor Swift's got a vodka cranberry up in the air, celebrating.
Taylor's oh, sorry, your husband's thrown 2 interceptions, and my guy has 40 yards receiving already in the second quarter.
Yeah. I don't think it's a distraction. I think, man, I'll tell you what, you can build a conspiracy theory pretty quickly that this is a mutually beneficial. And I don't believe this. I'm just saying that Taylor Swift has a movie coming out about her Eras tour. Now, is she going to get some more eyeballs on it because of the NFL? Sure. Is she getting publicity? Sure. Is it a fairly negligible amount of publicity that she's adding to her already enormous stardom and publicity that she's already got for this tour? Probably. The guy who's benefiting here, if you're just being looking at the numbers, Travis Kelce, his jersey sales are up 700%. He gained 300,000 Instagram followers or something like that. And New Heights, the Kelce podcast, which is really just fantastic, has over it's 1.2 million subscribers on YouTube. The numbers went through the roof. I think they had 68,000 likes on the most recent episode where they talked about the week 3 recap and talked about the Taylor Swift situation. And by the way, smash the like button if you're watching on YouTube now. Throw us a like button. We're talking about Taylor Swift. And I think it's fun. I think it's awesome. I think it's hilarious how this is. You couldn't have made this up before the season. If you they kept running all these script, the NFL script writers or It's if you've been okay, what about this? Aaron Rodgers gets hurt. and Zach Wilson has to replace him, and he outplays Patrick Mahomes for the most part in a week 4 game with Taylor Swift watching her boyfriend Travis Kelce from the luxury suite. Like you would say, if you'd said that, if that had been your bold prediction on our bold prediction show before the season, we would have been like, that's a D, because it's so
and
ridiculous.
The most far-fetched part would have been Zach Wilson outplaying Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
Not even Taylor Swift in the box dating.
Right, but I mean, you know, like we would have been like, oh my God, it'd be like Wilson. Like, okay, that would be an A because it's so crazy, but it's a D because you've like boxed yourself in with 3 or 4 very specific things that it just can't possibly be true. And yet here we are in reality.
So producer Harry points out, I'm just seeing this note here, there were exactly 17 cutaways to Taylor Swift during the Sunday night telecast. And it feels like that's low. It felt like they were closer to 34 or what's that, 60, 68? Look at that math.
Was
All
there
right,
an
yeah.
over you could bet on?
I took the over of 200, so I think I lost.
By the way, do you think it's a coincidence that in his first game with Taylor Swift watching, Travis Kelce had 69 yards, and in his second game with Taylor Swift watching, he had 6 catches on 9 targets?
I think that is the definition of coincidence.
I don't think it's coincidence. I think Mahomes knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah, Mahomes proceeded to run. All he did was run after he got Kelce to 6 catches on 9 targets.
All right, well, let's talk about Mahomes because Breach hinted at it. He played like straight up dog dookie, and if Zach Wilson had played like that, they would have literally fed him to the Lions at halftime. They would have set up a fence around the perimeter, thrown some lines out there, and said, Zach Wilson, run until you get tired, and then let's see what happens. And the crowd would have cheered like they were watching Gladiator. I don't know what was going on with Mahomes. He had a 3rd interception. And Breach, I'll get your thoughts on this. Number one, did Robert Saleh have a beef with the defensive holding call in quotation marks against Sauce Gardner that kept that drive alive late in the game? I think Patrick scrambled for a 3rd and 20 that should have he threw the ball. That's what happened. The interception was overturned. The 3rd and 20 became 1st and 5, first down, excuse me. And then they ran the clock out and yada, yada, yada. So did Robert Saleh have a beef? Number one. And number two, any planet where we're concerned about Patrick Mahomes, are you taking the Will Brinson week 1 approach with Josh Allen that everything's fine?
I'm taking the Will Brinson approach. I would never show any concern for Patrick Mahomes after one game where he throws multiple interceptions. He has these games for whatever reason. It's just like he thinks during the week, we're playing the Jets. I don't need studying film. I'm just going to go in there and wing it, and we'll see what happens. We saw in 2021, he had 3 games where he threw multiple interceptions. Last season, he had 2 games where he threw multiple interceptions, regular season games. And so this isn't out of the norm for this to happen to him 2 or 3 times a season. It's just how he plays. Sometimes he goes a little more gunslinger than I'm sure Andy Reid would like. And I mentioned it in Slack that it looked like he was short-arming a couple of his throws where they just weren't getting.
He did. He's short-arming.
He didn't. They weren't going to where he wanted them to go. And he definitely looked a little frustrated each time they happened. So I don't think the interceptions are a big deal. Now, if he throws 2 interceptions next week and then the week after that and doesn't 3 straight games, and he does it against good teams who can actually take advantage of it, because if Mahomes doesn't throw those interceptions, they go up 24-0, and this probably ends up being a blowout. So that definitely kept the Jets in the game. So yeah, I'm not too.
I mean, he's only got one game this year without an interception, which is a little surprising for Mahomes. I think I mentioned this throughout the week, and I just sort of wonder if it was the case because the balls that he had the interceptions on were like those touch throws where you need to put enough arc on him, and he didn't really step into him at all. I sort of wonder if he was trying to be more armsy during this game because he had that banged up ankle from last week, and they're on that turf in MetLife Stadium. There's just been devastatingly bad for injuries. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't have anything, to back that up. I just sort of wonder if maybe he was trying to make sure not to expose that ankle, or if he had maybe more tape on the ankle, something like that. And just like, there was just very uncharacteristic of him to short those touch throws as much as he did on both of those.
Breach didn't answer the question, so I'll ask you. Robert Saleh have a right to be upset, number one, and number two, any concern about these Chiefs?
Yeah, I think he had a right to be upset. It was pretty physical all game. That was like there was a holding call on either the offense or defense 4 straight plays, which is just really frustrating. Even if like there was one when Mahomes had that 25-yard run where
Trey
he picked
Smith,
up
the guard, got called for holding.
Yep. Just a lot of just a lot of laundry there at the end of that game. And so I think, yeah, if you're Robert Saleh, it's a close game. You storm back from down 17-0 with Zach Wilson at quarterback and the defending Super Bowl champions in your house. And the ball gets picked off, the flag comes in late. They it's for holding, and it's like, yeah, I mean, technically by the letter of the law, you could probably call it for
it was
holding.
a pretty bad hold. It was a pretty egregious.
Felt like upon review it was closer than it was, and then the Trey Smith penalty that Brenton just mentioned, that was iffy too. So who knows? At the end of the day, I get Robert Saleh being angry. That's not why they lost. Zach Wilson can't catch a snap, and let's be honest, Zach Wilson played out of his mind by Zach Wilson standards. So he stayed off the Joe Flacco return for at least another week.
If Zach Wilson plays like that, I mean, Robert Saleh said it after the game. If Zach Wilson plays like that the rest of the year, we'll win a lot of football games. And he's not wrong. Like the Jets will be, although I do think that like as good as the Jets defense is, the Jets themselves and like most Jets fans have drastically overrated how good this defense is.
Well, it didn't help that the Chiefs came out and ran the ball all over the Jets and the defense did nothing. And then Zach Wilson got hot. And by that point they were down 17-0 tied to 2020. And then the fumble happened. But yeah, I mean, you have to feel great about Zach Wilson. I don't know if they're going to win a bunch of games. Like 4 feels like if he plays like that, that's a good number.
I think he'd like 6 or 7 if he plays like that.
That feels, where are you on that, Breach? 7 too high, too low?
If Zach Wilson puts together.
Yeah, no, we got it. But
I'm just saying, like, let's say how many games they have left? What, 13? If he puts together 10 games like that, I think they win 7 of them.
That seems ridiculous.
Well, I think
we win 6 more games.
If you lose to Denver, though, there was some speculation. Yeah, there's some speculation going into this week that the defense was a little bit frustrated with Wilson's playing. And if you go out to Denver and lose to them, that could rekindle that frustration. And that might be enough. So maybe you make this bye, which is in 2 weeks.